In life, we cannot avoid sudden storms, moments when everything seems to collapse around us. But there is a simple yet profound truth. Difficulties do not define you. How you face them does. Perhaps you have felt the same way, lost among hardships, wondering if you can ever overcome them. And in these moments, Buddhist stories, not just distant legends, but living teachings, can guide you through the storms of the mind, helping you find peace even when the world outside seems chaotic. Consider this: when we cling to what is lost, we grow heavier and more exhausted. But when we learn to let go, when we face our fears with patience and compassion, that is when we find true freedom. Each story you are about to hear opens a lesson, a mirror of how people confront adversity, how they find faith when hope seems gone, and how wisdom, compassion, and patience can transform suffering into a chance to grow the soul. You will meet characters like Ananda, the young practitioner, learning patience amidst the flood of the mind; Ravi, the merchant who lost everything but discovers freedom through letting go; Maya, the young woman who finds inner peace through compassion; Arjun, the student who uncovers wisdom to illuminate his path; and Leela, the traveler who finds hope even in the darkest moments of despair. Each story is a piece of the larger picture of overcoming hardships, a reminder that anyone, no matter the trials they face, can find light. And you will see that after each story, it is not just a lesson but an experience you can bring into your own life, to maintain peace of mind, to move past fear, to discover faith and hope where you thought there was none. Let us step into these stories together, to feel each moment, each challenge, and to explore how the teachings of the Buddha are not just knowledge, but the key to unlocking inner peace in life's most difficult times. Story 1. The Pilgrim and the Lotus in the Storm. Chapter 1. The Flood Within the Mind. Ananda stepped into the meditation forest as the sun began to rise behind the dense canopy, sunlight filtering through the leaves to create shimmering patches on the leaf-strewn ground. He felt his heart heavy, as if a small storm was gathering in his chest. Since graduating, Ananda's life had never been easy. The fear of unemployment and an uncertain future clung to him day after day, making him feel as if he were being swallowed by a flood. He took a deep breath, trying to dispel the anxieties in his mind. Yet the fear did not diminish. What should I do? Where can I find peace? Ananda wondered, his eyes following the leaves swaying in the breeze. Suddenly, an image of a lotus blooming amidst the mud appeared in his mind, a vision he had seen in Buddhist books before, but never truly felt. Walking along the narrow forest path, Ananda noticed an elderly monk sweeping leaves in the courtyard of a small temple nestled among the trees. The monk stood tall, his face serene, eyes gentle yet commanding. Each sweep of the broom fell like the rhythm of a silent meditation. Ananda approached, his heart still racing. But something in the monk's gaze made him pause, as if invited into another world where fear and pressure held no power. Master, I don't know what to do with my life. Every day passes and all I feel is worry and failure, Ananda said, his voice trembling, on the verge of tears. The monk lifted his gaze and looked straight into Ananda's eyes, a gentle smile spreading across his aged face. Young one, fear is not meant to be avoided. It is like a strong current. If you resist it, you will be swept away. If you move with it, you will learn to stand firm. Ananda was surprised, but he did not fully understand. Move with it. How can I be sure I won't be carried away? To know, you must look deeply within your own mind, the monk replied, his voice soft yet firm. Come with me into the forest. I will show you a lotus blooming amidst the mud. They walked deeper into the forest, the dry leaves crunching softly underfoot. The space around them was silent, broken only by the sounds of birds and wind rustling the leaves. Ananda felt his heartbeat gradually slow, though worry and confusion still lingered. He sat by a small stream, listening to the water trickle as if it were telling its own story. Look, Ananda, the monk said, pointing to a lotus rising from the murky water. The petals slowly unfolded, pale pink in the morning sun, radiating a pure beauty amid the surrounding mud. The lotus does not choose where it grows. It blooms in mud, amid difficulties, amid challenges. Yet because of this, it becomes resilient and bloom amid difficulties without being swept away. Master, I don't know if I can do it, Ananda whispered, his voice shaky. My life is full of worries and failures. I fear I will never stand firm. The monk placed a hand on Ananda's shoulder, his eyes filled with calm. It will not happen all at once. Patience comes step by step, breath by breath. Look at the lotus. It does not rush to the soft mud beneath his hands, a gentle peace slowly seeping through his nerves. He began to realize that the fear, anxiety, and pressure he had carried for so long were not enemies, but waves he needed to learn to move with. I will try, Master, Ananda whispered, more a promise to himself than to anyone else. I will learn patience. I will learn to stand firm. The monk nodded. There, letting his mind flow with the stream, eyes fixed on the lotus blooming amidst the mud, feeling a strange sensation, gentle yet strong. He knew that though many challenges lay ahead, he had found a patch of land within his own heart where he could stand firm, learn patience, and bloom like the lotus amidst the mud. He closed his eyes, feeling his breath, sensing his heart calmer, and whispered to himself, I will not be afraid. I will learn patience, and I will stand firm. Opening his eyes, sunlight filtered through the leaves. The lotus still radiated its beauty. And he smiled. No words of teaching, no explanations, just the image of the lotus and the gentle peace seeping into his soul, a quiet reminder that even amid storms, patience and inner strength could help one stand firm. Chapter 2. Meditation Amid the Storm. Ananda sat down in the meditation forest, where the gentle sound of the stream mingled with the rustling leaves, creating a rare. The image of the lotus blooming amidst the mud still appeared, but now, amidst the inner storm, it seemed faint, as if being swept away by the current. Master, I can't stop worrying, Ananda whispered internally, his voice trembling. Every time I feel a little peace, the worries return, stronger than before. I feel like all my efforts are meaningless. The elderly monk stood beside him, his gaze calm yet firm. Young one, do not fear the waves. They are merely challenges, not enemies. Let them rise and fall, and observe them with a still mind. Ananda tried to take a deep breath, focusing on his breathing. He imagined all the pressures, all the anxieties, and the fear of failure as a violent current sweeping away every effort he had painstakingly built. In meditation, he saw himself standing in the middle of the strong water, his arms and legs flailing, his heart racing, the cold water seeping into every muscle, every vein. He gasped. Then the image of the lotus blooming amidst the mud appeared before his eyes. Its petals unfolded gently, pale pink in the morning sunlight, radiating a pure beauty amid the dark mud. Despite the raging water, the lotus remained resilient, unshaken. He recalled the monk's teaching. Patience is the strength within. When you can stand firm in the midst of challenges, even when everything is swept away, you can still find peace. Ananda took a deep breath, exhaling slowly, trying to let the imagined current no longer terrify him. He observed each wave, each feeling of unease in his body, and instead of resisting them, he allowed them to exist, accepting every fear as part of reality. With each breath, each heartbeat, his pace slowed, and the rhythm of the imagined water softened, as if learning to respect the power within himself. Occasionally, Ananda opened his eyes, looking at the lotus, its petals radiating patience and resilience. He whispered to himself, if the lotus can bloom in the mud, I can stand firm amidst challenges. I can be patient. This self-reminder became an anchor in his mind, helping him remain unshaken amidst the torrent of emotions. Hours of meditation passed. Ananda imagined being submerged by the water, imagining all his efforts and hopes dissolving, yet he remained standing. No more worry, no more fear, only a strong sensation permeating each breath, patience. He began to realize that fear of failure was not something to run from, but something to face directly, confront, and release. The monk observed Ananda from afar, smiling quietly. He said nothing, simply standing as a steady presence. Ananda felt it, and in that silence, he sensed an inner strength rising. A calm yet powerful energy, enough to help him stand firm amidst any challenge that seemed insurmountable. In his imagination, the violent waves gradually receded, the water softened, and the lotus remained, glowing amidst the mud. Ananda opened his eyes, sunlight filtered through the leaves, the water sparkling like a mirror reflecting his newly calmed mind. He smiled, feeling each breath, each heartbeat filled with peace, and whispered to himself, "I have found strength within. I will no longer fear. I will be patient and stand firm." Those moments flowed like a gentle river, yet within Ananda, a seed of patience had been sown, strong and enduring, ready to rise regardless of the challenges ahead. He stood, glancing once more at the lotus, its petals, unfolding in radiance, reminding him that patience is not something external, but the strength within every breath, every heartbeat, and every step of his journey. Ananda walked through the meditation forest, each step slow but steady, his mind filled with fresh tranquility. Though many difficulties still lay ahead, he knew that whenever fear and thoughts of failure arose, he would return to the image of the lotus, take a deep breath, exhale slowly, and patiently stand firm amidst the storm within his mind. Chapter 3. Peace Amid Impermanence. Ananda opened his eyes as the morning sunlight filtered through the leaves of the meditation forest, casting shimmering patches on the ground that danced with the breeze. The surrounding space was quiet, filled only with the gentle sound of the stream and distant birdsong. He sat there for a long while, taking deep breaths and feeling each heartbeat, as if every inhalation and exhalation washed away the tension and fears he had carried for so long. His heart was much calmer than when he first entered the forest, yet he knew this was only the beginning of a long journey. The image of the lotus blooming in the mud still appeared before him, but now it was not a distant vision. It was a vivid reminder. Patience and inner strength can sprout right within one's own mind. Ananda realized that every challenge, every difficulty, could be faced if he learned to stand firm, observe, and accept impermanence. Life, like the small stream flowing through the forest, is always changing and shifting. But if the mind remains calm, he would not be swept away. He stood and walked slowly along the leaf-covered forest path, feeling the soft earth beneath his feet and the cool mist on his skin, sharpening his awareness. I will no longer let fear control me, Ananda thought. I will apply patience to every action, every decision, every step I take. Each step reminded him that peace does not come from the outside, but from inner strength, from the ability to accept and face things as they are. He recalled the challenging hours of meditation when he imagined violent waters sweeping away all his efforts. Back then, fear and anxiety surged powerfully, yet he did not give up. He had stood firm, breathing deeply and slowly, allowing all emotions to pass. Now he realized that it was through these experiences that he had learned acceptance. Life is not always calm, but with patience, he could find peace in every moment, whether joyous or sorrowful, smooth or rough. Ananda continued deeper into the forest, where towering ancient trees cast long shadows, and sunlight streamed through the leaves, creating glittering patterns on the ground. He paused by a large rock near the stream, sat down, and closed his eyes again, feeling his breath, the water flowing past his feet, and the breeze brushing his face. He let his mind drift with the stream. But this time there was no fear or worry. Only a deep, abiding peace remained, like the clear water reflecting the blue sky above. He remembered the monk's words, "Every challenge is a lesson. If you can stand firm, every storm will pass, and you will find peace." Ananda smiled, realizing that these words were not just advice. They were the truth he had experienced. Peace does not come from avoiding or eliminating difficulties. It comes from the ability to accept them, stand firm, and move through every storm of the mind with patience. In his imagination, the violent waves that had once surged within him gradually subsided, leaving a gentle stream flowing through the mud. The lotus still bloomed, radiant, reminding him that even in the most difficult circumstances, beauty and resilience could still be found. He understood that peace amid impermanence did not mean that everything would always be smooth, but that he could maintain a calm mind and stay on the right path even as everything around him changed. Ananda stood, walking out of the meditation forest, feeling each step firm despite lingering worries about the future. This time, however, the fears were no longer heavy. He had learned to observe, to be patient, and to accept. Every challenge in life, whether unemployment, hardship, or loss, was now just part of the flow he could move with, no longer swept away. As he walked along the path leaving the forest, sunlight filtered through the trees, casting shimmering rays on the ground like tiny candles lit in his heart. Ananda looked at the lotus one last time, its petals unfolding in brilliant light, and whispered to himself, "I will bring this patience into every action, every decision, every step I take. I will stand firm in the face of any challenge and find peace even as everything changes." He continued walking, neither hurried nor anxious. Each step was a testament to patience, each breath a testament to the inner peace that had taken root in his heart. Though many challenges still lay ahead, he knew that by holding onto his inner strength, he could overcome any storm. He looked up at the sky, inhaled deeply, and felt the energy of peace flowing through his body, from his heart, through every muscle, to his toes. He knew he was ready for every challenge, ready to apply patience to every action and continue the journey of life. Looking around the meditation forest once more, where the violent waves had once raged, and realized that everything he had learned from meditation was not just a lesson, it was the power to move forward, peace amid impermanence, and the ability to stand firm amidst all challenges life presented. Ananda stepped out of the forest, feeling confident, patient, and at peace. Though challenges remained ahead, he knew he was no longer controlled by fear or anxiety. Every step, every action would be guided by patience and inner peace. He smiled, took a deep breath, and whispered to himself, "I will face every challenge. I will be patient, and I will stand firm amidst life's storms." Every step Ananda took on the path out of the meditation forest was a living testament to inner strength, to the peace found amid impermanence. Each step was not only movement forward, but a spiritual journey, a sign of growth, and a promise to himself that no matter how circumstances changed, he would maintain peace, stand firm, and practice patience in every moment of life. The sunlight filtered through the leaves like tiny rays of hope, and Ananda realized that he, too, was like the lotus, blooming in the mud, steadfast and peaceful. He continued walking, each step an affirmation, a learning, and an application of patience to every action in his life. No matter what uncertainties, difficulties, or challenges lay ahead, he knew he was ready, and peace had become an inseparable part of his soul. Story 2. The Merchant and the Broken Vase. Chapter 1. Pressure in the business office. Ravi sat dazed at his large office desk, where contracts, paperwork, and financial reports piled up like they were trying to swallow him in a void. The luxurious office, with natural light streaming through the big windows, no longer felt warm. It only amplified a deep emptiness. His heart felt constricted, every beat echoing the failure he had not yet accepted. "No, it can't be. I've lost everything like this," Ravi exclaimed, his hands trembling as he held his phone, where notifications flashed with red numbers, signaling the market collapse and the evaporation of his wealth. He slumped in his chair, eyes fixed on the screen, a sense of helplessness rising layer by layer within him. A colleague stepped in, voice low and cautious. "Ravi, are you okay? The situation, it's bad, but we still have a chance to recover." Ravi shook his head, eyes still glued to the numbers. "Recover? How can I recover when everything I've worked for has turned to dust? Every effort, every plan, it's all as if it never existed. I can't accept this." He stood and paced around the office, running his hands through his hair, jaw tensed, breathing rapidly. Memories of the early days of his business, the first profits, successful contracts, all flashed in his mind. He clung to the past like a treasure, yet now that past had become chains binding his mind, preventing him from moving forward. "Ravi, you need to calm down. We still have partners, we still have other opportunities," his colleague tried to console him. But the words seemed to fall into a void, swallowed by Ravi's ragged breathing and racing heart. Ravi walked to the window, looking out at the distant city, where the morning light reflected off. Towering buildings, Yet to him it was nothing but a blur. He thought, I used to believe that if I worked hard, invested wisely, I would always be secure. But now, everything has vanished, everything is gone. I have nothing left. He turned back to the desk, trembling as he touched a decorative vase he had bought on a distant trip, a small object, yet filled with memories, successes, first contracts, proud moments. He stared at it, feeling both love and pain, wanting to hold it, yet also wanting to throw it away. This vase, it's like everything I've built. Now it's nothing. Ravi whispered, eyes glistening. He lifted his hand, then dropped it, as if struggling with himself. No, I can't let it go. I can't. I can't let everything slip away. Time passed quietly. Ravi sat there, immersed in pressure, disappointment, and stress. Every tick of the clock on the wall seemed to remind him of loss, of opportunities that could never be regained, of a past he could not forget. He walked to the meeting room where colleagues were discussing, but felt completely disconnected from everyone. Laughter, conversations, new plans, all seemed to occur in another world he could not reach. I used to be the leader, the decision maker. Now I am just someone watching everything fall apart. He whispered, trying to release the pain but not knowing where to begin. In Ravi's mind, images of the past and the loss collided continuously, creating a violent storm of emotions. He recalled sleepless nights, important meetings, contracts he had signed, all disappearing in an instant. He felt as if he were clutching a pile of ashes, trying to hold on to fragments of old successes, yet the tighter he held, the more it hurt. No, I have to. I must recover, must hold on, Ravi muttered, voice trembling, eyes flashing with despair. But every effort to hold on felt useless, like water slipping through fingers, like sand falling from an open hand. The heavy pressure weighed on his shoulders. His heart raced, his body exhausted, yet his mind could not rest or find peace. Ravi paced the room, hands through his hair, mumbling numbers, plans, and lost contracts. He stopped at the desk, looking at the vase once again, eyes filled with pain and longing. If I let go, everything will be gone, but if I hold on, I can't live with what's lost either, he whispered, feeling the torment tearing his soul. Night fell, the lights in the office softened, but Ravi's mind remained turbulent. He lay on the chair, staring at the ceiling, eyes wide open but seeing nothing. Memories, failures, and losses clung to him like invisible chains. He sighed quietly, a sense of helplessness enveloping him. What should I do now? He asked himself, but no answer appeared. Ravi got up, walked to the window, looking out at the distant city lights, blinking like tiny gems. He felt small, fragile amidst the vast world, and the sense of loss grew heavier than ever. Yet amid the pain, he still gazed at the vase on the desk, a tiny object holding so many memories and emotions. He sat there, looking at it, feeling the emptiness and conflict within, realizing that the past and present, what had been lost and what remained, were in constant tension. I can't forget, but I also can't continue like this, Ravi whispered. He felt a weariness descend, but also realized that he had no choice but to face it, to face the loss, to confront the past that could not be changed. Ravi sat quietly beside the vase, hand lightly touching its cool surface, feeling both love and pain. Light from the ceiling reflected across it, making it shimmer in the darkness. He took a deep breath, eyes closed, and whispered to himself, I have to find a way to live on, to move beyond loss, but I don't know where to start. Time passed, and Ravi remained seated, mind filled with pressure, disappointment, and the pain of loss, yet he did not move or avoid it. He simply sat, holding memories, staring at the vase, feeling the tension between past and present, between what was lost and what remained. The ceiling light reflected on the desk, casting Ravi's thoughtful silhouette, and in that moment, the image of a broken vase flickered in his mind, reminding him of the fragility of everything he had once trusted and held. He said nothing, only sighed, feeling the pain and emptiness, yet also knowing this was the first step in looking squarely at loss that he had not yet been able to let go of. Chapter 2. The Broken Vase in the Small Temple. Ravi walked slowly along the narrow path leading to a small temple nestled deep in the mountains, where dense trees formed cool, shaded areas. The air here was serene, filled only with the rustle of leaves in the wind and the distant chirping of birds. He took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing heart after days of stress and accumulated loss. The weight of financial failure still pressed heavily on him, but a sense of curiosity and hope crept in, urging him to continue walking. Upon entering the temple courtyard, Ravi saw statues of the Buddha placed reverently among flowers and soft light. An elderly monk sat at a small table, gently holding a cracked porcelain vase, as if carefully observing every fracture. With respect and reverence, Ravi approached silently, standing and watching the monk and the vase. The monk looked up, a kind smile on his face, and greeted, "Welcome, my child. What brings you here?" Ravi bowed his head, his voice trembling. I am searching for peace, but I don't know where to start. I've lost everything I built, and I cannot let go." The monk studied him for a long moment, his eyes calm yet deeply understanding. He handed the broken vase to Ravi, his voice gentle. "This is a vase. When it was whole, it was beautiful and perfect. But once it is broken, it is nothing but shards. Do you see? Holding onto a broken vase is like holding onto suffering." Ravi gazed at the fragments in the monk's hands, feeling both familiarity and strangeness. "But I cannot forget. I held it for so long, and now it is all broken." The monk gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "Child, the cracks do not erase the vase's value when it was whole. But if you cling to the broken pieces, you will never see the light. Only when you let go can you find freedom." Ravi sighed, eyes lowering to his hands, imagining that he was still tightly clutching invisible shards. He recalled all the lost contracts, all the opportunities gone, all his efforts turned to dust. His heart ached, yet the monk's words felt like a ray of light cutting. Holding on to suffering. If you can accept and release, you will realize that everything changes and nothing lasts forever. The broken vase is only a symbol of what has passed. But you are still here, still alive, still able to continue. Ravi sat down, eyes on the broken vase, and slowly breathed in and out. He imagined letting go, allowing the shards to fall onto the table, onto the temple floor, no longer a burden on his shoulders. In that moment, he felt a lightness for the first time after days of heavy grief. The monk observed him, saying nothing, allowing Ravi to freeing his mind from attachment. Sunlight streamed through the small window, illuminating the broken pieces on the table like tiny crystals. Ravi smiled, feeling his heart calm and sensing peace. Letting go is not forgetting, but accepting. When you cling to the past, you suffer. When you release, you truly find freedom and can continue your journey. Ravi looked around the temple. Lush trees, blooming flowers, sunlight filtering through the leaves, and felt his mind brighten. He realized that every loss, every failure, is a part of life, and he could move through it if he loosened his grip and stopped holding on to what had broken. He placed his hand on the broken vase once more, but this time, there was no pain, only awareness and gratitude. He thanked the monk silently and thought. Every breath, he knew that though challenges still lay ahead and losses were inevitable, he had learned a precious lesson. Holding on to suffering is like clutching a broken vase. Only by letting go can one experience freedom. He left the temple, the image of the broken vase lingering in his mind, but no longer a burden. It was a reminder that every loss can become a lesson, and freedom always peaceful and ready for a new journey. With each step and every breath, Ravi felt freedom spreading throughout his body like cool water washing away the wounds of the soul. He knew life would continue, challenges would remain, but the pain no longer weighed as heavily. He smiled, looking at the broken vase one last time in the morning light, and whispered to himself, "I have learned to let go, and from now on, I will move forward with a lighter and freer heart." Chapter 3. The Freedom in Letting Go. Ravi woke early, sunlight streaming through the small temple window, casting shimmering streaks across the worn floor. The fresh morning air made him feel lighter, no longer burdened by the dark weight of past days. He sat down, took a deep breath, feeling each inhalation fill his chest with life. For the first time in many long days, Ravi experienced complete peace, free from pressure or fear. He stepped into the temple courtyard, where yellow apricot blossoms swayed gently in the breeze, spreading a delicate fragrance. Ravi sat on the temple steps, watching the clear stream flow through the courtyard, listening to the sounds of nature as if reminding him that life continues, changing moment by moment, and every loss is only a part of the cycle. He recalled the days he clung to the past, the pain and failures that had frozen his heart. Letting go does not mean forgetting. It means freeing your mind and heart. When you no longer cling to loss, you will find the strength to continue. Ravi looked at the monk, nodding, a sense of relief rising within him. He thought, I once believed that loss would crush me, but it turns out that holding on was the real chain binding me. He gazed at the flowing stream, imagining that each fragment of the past was drifting along with the water, leaving his mind empty yet serene. Over the following days, Ravi spent time observing life in the temple, learning to slow down, noticing each breath, each step, each glance. Every morning, he walked around the courtyard, cared for the plants, swept the leaves, admired the flowers, and gradually felt a deep connection with himself and the surrounding nature. Peace permeated his soul, blending with the bird song, the babbling stream, and the gentle fragrance of the flowers. Ravi also began journaling his thoughts and feelings in a small notebook, using each line to confront and release lingering emotions. He wrote about the losses he had experienced, the pain he once clutched, but more importantly, he wrote about how he had learned to let go, accept, and find freedom within his own heart. One morning, Ravi stood by the stream, watching sunlight sparkle on the water's surface. Watching it sink, the stones symbolized the pain, failure, and loss that had passed, making space for freedom and new energy. Ravi began planning to rebuild his life. He realized that past failures were not the end, but turning points that taught him valuable lessons about letting go, acceptance, and patience. Each day, he devoted time to learning, connecting with others, expanding his knowledge and skills, while nurturing a spirit of peace and optimism. One day, Ravi stood at the temple gate, looking out over the vast mountains, feeling the cool wind brush against his face. He exhaled, but this time it was a sigh of relief and serenity. He understood that life would always present challenges, but with a free mind and a peaceful heart, he could face them without being. Instead of stress and despair, he listened, shared, and collaborated to find solutions. Ravi realized that true strength was not only in material success, but in the ability to let go, accept, and keep moving forward. He smiled, eyes bright with joy, heart full of energy and hope. Ravi also began helping others face loss, sharing his story to inspire them with the power of letting go and freedom within the mind. He realized that freedom comes not only from releasing one's own pain, but also from empathy and helping others find peace. Each day, Ravi observed life, appreciating simple moments, the sunlight, bird song, the fragrance of flowers, and with each step, he felt himself growing. Loss was no longer a chain, but a lesson, a source of motivation to rebuild life with faith and energy. Sitting by a small river, eyes closed, breathing deeply, Ravi realized for the first time that true freedom lies in letting go, accepting all that happens, and moving forward with a peaceful, energized heart. He walked step by step, slowly but steadily, heart light and free, ready to embrace challenges, opportunities, and new joys. He smiled, looking up at the vast blue sky, silently saying to himself, I have let go, I have found freedom, and from now on, I will live with peace in every moment. A new life began. Ravi knew that while challenges still lay ahead, with a free mind, peaceful heart, and abundant energy, he could create opportunities, build happiness, and live fully each day. Every loss became a valuable lesson, every moment of freedom a gift, and the belief in himself and the ability to let go had led him into a meaningful, fulfilling life. Story 3. The Girl and the Light of Compassion. Chapter 1. The Wall of Solitude. Maya sat in her small room, the evening light streaming through the window, casting flickering beams across the wooden floor. She curled up, holding her head in her hands, sighing deeply. Her mind was crowded with no end. I don't understand why people are like that. Why do I always have to deal with the mess they make? Maya muttered to herself, her brow furrowed, her lips trembling slightly. It felt as though an invisible wall stood between her and the world outside, a wall that kept her from sharing, from opening her heart, leaving her trapped in her own tension and isolation. Her phone buzzed, a message from a colleague. Can you join the meeting? We need to discuss the new project. Maya glanced at the screen, feeling a wave of exhaustion wash over her. She replied curtly, No, I can't join today. Then she put the phone down and sat still, staring blankly ahead, as if searching for something she couldn't name. That morning, she had walked past her coworkers chatting and laughing together. Their cheerful energy only deepened her irritation. How can they be so happy? They don't understand anything. I'm the one holding everything together. I don't need anyone, she told herself silently, her tone defensive. The wall of solitude around her heart grew even thicker, turning every interaction into a source of discomfort. That evening, Maya stepped onto her balcony, looking out over the city lights shimmering in the distance. The wind brushed through her hair, carrying faint traces of smoke and the scent of flowers from nearby apartments. She inhaled deeply, trying to shake off the exhaustion and disappointment clinging to her. But the wall remained, cold, silent, impenetrable. For a brief moment, she heard birds singing from the courtyard below. She listened, but her heart remained heavy. Even nature can't help me, she whispered, her eyes drifting toward the horizon. Thoughts clouded her mind like thick gray mist, blocking any trace of peace. The next day at work, a coworker approached her desk with a gentle smile. Maya, are you okay? You look really tired today. Maya nodded slightly, but suspicion flickered behind her calm expression. I'm fine, she said coolly, concealing the storm that brewed inside her. During lunch, she sat alone in the corner, watching others eat and chat animatedly. Every friendly glance only made her feel more alienated. Walking home later that evening, Maya passed by a small park. Children were running and laughing under the fading sunlight. A strange feeling rose in her chest. Envy mingled with bitterness. Why can they be happy? I'll never be like that, she whispered, her steps heavy on the stone path. The wall of loneliness loomed larger. Conversations she had avoided, the invitations she had refused, and a faint trace of regret crept in, only to be quickly smothered by her pride and mistrust. I can't trust anyone, no one truly understands me, she thought, her eyes distant, her heart tangled in conflicting emotions. She remembered an old friend who once told her, Just open your heart, Maya. I'll listen. But Maya had. One afternoon, Maya wandered around a small lake near her home. The water reflected the hues of sunset, soft and trembling. She paused, staring at her reflection in the rippling surface, trying to clear her thoughts, but the wall remained unbroken. That night, she lay awake in bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling while her mind swirled with questions. She replayed every harsh word, every judgment, every silent rejection. Why am I like this? Why can't I open my heart? The ticking clock on the wall seemed to echo her solitude, sharp, rhythmic, and endless. She sighed again, but for the first time, a small spark of curiosity flickered inside her. Was there a way to break through it? Could compassion somehow reach her? Sitting up, she looked out the window at the faint. The wall was still there, but a small crack had appeared, a glimpse of light finding its way through. Maya stood up, walked to the balcony, and gazed up at the night sky. The cool air brushed her cheeks, and she whispered to herself, I'll try. I'll learn to open my heart, to understand, to care, so I won't be trapped inside this loneliness anymore. And in that quiet moment beneath the stars, something shifted, not in the world outside, but within her own heart. Chapter 2. The Flame of Compassion. Maya left her apartment one mild afternoon, her heart still weighed with unease but carrying a fragile new thought. What if I tried to open my heart, to see the world differently? As she walked, she found a narrow path leading toward an old temple nestled under tall trees. The gate stood slightly open, the soft chime of a bell drifting through the air as if inviting her in. Without knowing why, Maya stepped inside, drawn by something gentle and invisible. In the temple courtyard sat an elderly man on a stone bench near a patch of flowers. His eyes gazed into the distance, serene and deep. His wrinkles carried time's traces, yet his smile radiated warmth. Maya hesitated, but something about his quiet presence made her feel lighter. He looked up and nodded softly. "Come, child," the old man said, his voice as calm as dusk. "You seem to be carrying something heavy within." Maya blinked, surprised at his perception. Yet she had come this far, and for the first time in a long while, she wanted to be honest. "Yes, I feel lonely and find it hard to open my heart. I tend to judge people. I can't seem to connect with anyone," she admitted quietly. The old man smiled knowingly, his eyes glimmering. "Let me tell you a story. Distant time. Long ago, there was a small village between two fierce rivers. The villagers lived by farming, their harvests deciding their fate each year. One season, a dispute over land and water broke out. Small arguments turned to hatred. People shut their doors, the marketplace emptied, laughter vanished. The village split into two sides, each walling themselves off, their words turned sharp as blades. Amid that bitterness lived a woman named Umla. She had no power, no wealth, only a small garden and a compassionate heart. Every day, she cooked simple meals and left them on the doorsteps of those isolated by the conflict, one day to one side, the next to the other. People cursed her, telling her to stay away. "Whose side are you on?" they sneered. But she kept going. She never argued. She never judged. She simply gave, as naturally as breathing. Then one night, a great storm came. The rivers overflowed, flooding the village and washing away fences and walls. In the chaos, those who once hated each other found themselves struggling side by side, saving children, livestock, each other. Umla moved through the storm, helping anyone she could. When dawn came, people realized that her compassion had held them together even when their anger had divided them. The fences were gone, and hearts began to soften. Slowly, the village healed not through force, but through kindness. The story fell into silence. Maya felt her chest tighten as though the words had loosened something deep within. The old man wasn't preaching. He was simply telling. When he finally looked up again, his eyes carried neither pity nor judgment, only gentle inquiry. "What do you see in that story?" he asked. Maya hesitated. "I see a woman who gave love even when people rejected her. They didn't understand until later, when everything was falling apart. But," she lowered her eyes, "if I give and they still reject me, I'll just end up hurt it out. But what matters is that you lit it." Maya fell silent, gazing at her hands resting on her knees. His words lingered like a slow breath in her chest. She remembered the times she had tried to help but was met with coldness or misunderstanding. She had wanted to give, yet she feared rejection. As if reading her thoughts, the old man said, "Start small. You don't have to save the world." Lonely souls finding solace in company. One old woman was struggling to thread a needle, her hands trembling. Maya hesitated, then stepped forward. "May I help you?" she asked gently. The woman frowned, surprised. "Who are you? Why do you want to help me?" I just saw you struggling," Maya stammered. "I thought I could help, if you'd let me." The old woman studied her for a moment, then shrugged. "Fine. Help if you wish." Maya took the needle carefully and began threading it. Around them, whispers rose. "Who does she think she is? Trying to show off?" The words were low but sharp, slicing into her resolve. Her hands trembled. She almost withdrew. Then the old woman's frail hand caught hers. "Don't let their tongues wound you," she murmured softly. "You helped me, that's enough." Maya looked up, and the woman smiled, a tired but sincere smile. The whispers faded into the background. When the thread finally passed through yard, carrying water for the elderly, helping a boy with his studies, people still looked at her with suspicion. Some mocked her. "You think this will change anything?" But she remembered the old man's words, and she stayed silent, focused. One rainy evening, Maya saw an elderly woman trembling under a leaking roof. She rushed over, gave her raincoat, and helped her inside. A passerby scoffed, "Always meddling, huh? Think you're a hero?" The words stung, but when the old woman looked up and whispered, "Thank you, child," the sting melted away. That smile reminded Maya of Umla, the woman who had healed a village through compassion. And for the first time, Maya understood, Compassion was not weakness. It was strength, the strength to keep loving even when love wasn't. Returned. Weeks passed. One day, a quarrel broke out in the temple courtyard. Two old neighbors, fighting over a trivial issue that had festered for years. Voices rose, tempers flared. Maya stood nearby, heart racing. Something inside her urged her forward. She stepped between them, her voice calm. Please, can we sit and talk? You both have your reasons. Maybe we can find peace if. Began to smile. A ripple of quiet applause filled the courtyard. Maya stood still, her heart thudding. But this time, it was the rhythm of quiet joy. She realized the flame of compassion she had kindled was real, not grand, not miraculous, but steady. Over time, people began to see her differently. The tea seller who once mocked her now greeted her kindly. The little boy she tutored ran to. He smiled and said, "Your flame burns warmly now." Maya bowed slightly. "I'm only beginning. I've learned that giving light doesn't drain me, it fills me. Even when misunderstood, I feel lighter." The old man rested a hand on her head in silent blessing. Still, there were days of doubt. Some people she helped disappeared without a word. Others rejected her kindness outright. But each time Maya faltered, she reminded herself, there are always hearts that need warmth. That truth kept her steady. She no longer sought perfection or reward. Compassion became her quiet strength, not a blaze, but a soft, enduring glow. One golden evening, as laughter filled the temple courtyard, Maya turned to the old man and said, "I used to think strength meant judgment. Now I know. Strength means patience, openness, and the courage to love despite misunderstanding." The old man's eyes shone with pride. "Then your heart has learned what words cannot teach." Maya smiled, feeling peace settle deep within. The flame of compassion had become her guide, not loud, not burning, but alive. And as night fell and the first stars appeared, she whispered into the breeze, "Even if I'm misunderstood, even if I'm hurt, I will keep this flame alive. Because somewhere, someone needs its light." Chapter 3. The Fragrance of Peace in Everyday Life. Morning in. The small village began with familiar sounds, the sweeping of brooms on stone, the laughter of children calling to one another before the temple gates, and the ringing of a bronze bell echoing from the old pagoda. Maya opened her window, letting the cool breeze in. She smiled, breathing deeply. Outside, the sky was clear, and soft sunlight glimmered on the lotus blossoms in her small garden. Each petal unfurled gently, reflecting a serene glow. Months had passed since the day Maya first entered the small temple. From a closed-hearted girl, quick to judge and filled with quiet bitterness, she had changed in ways she never imagined. Not because life became easier, but because she had learned to listen, to understand, and to give compassion without expecting anything in return. That morning, she joined others in preparing a charity meal at the temple. Hands of all ages worked together, some chopping vegetables, others tending the fire, stirring a large pot of rice. Porridge that released a comforting aroma through the courtyard. Children ran around laughing. Elders sat beneath the Bodhi tree, chatting softly. The suspicious glances of the past were gone, replaced by warmth and gentle smiles. "Maya, come taste this," called out Grandma Kamala, the woman who once doubted her. Maya took a spoonful, blew on it, and tasted. "Delicious, Grandma. Maybe just a bit more ginger." Kamala laughed, nodding. "You have a good hand, child. I used to think you were cold and distant. Who knew you'd be the one bringing our village together again?" Maya smiled softly. "It's not me, Grandma. It's everyone's compassion. I just helped it grow." Her words were not modesty, they were truth. She knew that compassion, once shared. Laughter. Maya sat by the temple veranda, watching children share their bowls of porridge. The old man whose robe she had mended smiled at her from afar. Everything was simple yet alive. A quiet peace rippled through her like gentle waves across a still lake. The abbot approached and sat beside her. "What do you feel in your heart today?" he asked, voice deep and calm. Maya gazed at the dancing reflections of lotus leaves on the pond. "I feel light, as if all the anger and tension inside me have dissolved. I used to live in defense, afraid to be hurt. But now I see, when I open my heart, I'm not weaker. I'm free." The monk smiled. Compassion isn't only about loving others. It's also about loving yourself. When you stop wanting to win, stop trying to prove yourself, that's when peace arises. Maya bowed her head, letting his words sink deep into her soul. She remembered the difficult days, the times she tried to help and was misunderstood, the moments she was rejected but stayed patient. Once, she would have walked away, angry and wounded. Now she understood. Every trial was a lesson, teaching her to love even without. A hand extended at the right moment. On her way home, she saw a young man sitting beneath a tree, shoulders slumped. She stopped. "Are you all right?" He shook his head. I feel like life has no meaning anymore. I lost my job, my purpose. I don't know why I'm even here." Maya sat beside him quietly. "I used to feel that way too," she said gently. "I thought the whole world was against me. But I realized what I needed wasn't others' understanding, it was my own openness." He looked at her, confused. "Open? To what?" "To yourself," Maya smiled. "When you stop judging yourself so harshly, you'll find you stop blaming others." He fell silent, lost in thought. As Maya stood to leave, she said softly, "Come to the temple tomorrow. We could use a hand making porridge." It was a simple invitation, yet it became a thread of hope. The next day, he came. At first, he only stood and watched. Gradually, he joined in, helping the younger volunteers. Maya didn't say. Maya and others lit each lantern carefully. Their soft golden glow shimmered on the water like a field of stars fallen from the heavens. The wind stirred, making the flames flicker, but none went out. The abbot stood among them and said, "Each lantern is a heart. When you light another's flame, you are also illuminating your own." Maya looked around, at the joyful faces, the simple smiles, and relit it with her own. "It's okay. We can always light it again. The flame is never gone. It just waits for someone to share it." The novice looked at the glowing lantern, eyes wide with wonder. "Like you, sister?" Maya chuckled softly. "Like all of us. Everyone can bring light to others." That night, after everyone left, Maya lingered a while. Moonlight bathed the temple steps in silver. Gratitude swelled in her chest. Gratitude even for the storms that once tore through her heart, for they had led her to this peace. She no longer needed praise or recognition. It was enough to know that somewhere, someone smiled because of a small act of kindness she had done. That alone was meaning. As the night wind passed, the lotus flowers in the pond began to close. Maya rose and whispered, "Peace isn't a destination, it's the path itself." And on that path, she continued walking, quietly, gently, yet full of light. The peace within her was no longer just a feeling. It had become a current, flowing outward to everyone and everywhere she touched. Story 4. The Student and the Lamp of Wisdom. Chapter 1. The Mountain of Books and the Trembling Heart. Arjun sat at his desk in the dormitory, the night sky pressing darkly against the window, the faint yellow light of his lamp spilling across thick textbooks. Sticky notes of every color crowded his corkboard, and the exam schedule, marked in red, seemed to squeeze his chest tighter each time he looked at it. 2 weeks left until finals, the exams that would decide everything. His scholarship, his future, the dream his family had carried for years. He ran a hand through his hair, staring at the pile of books like a mountain without a peak. One subject led to another, formulas and theories tangled together, and every time he opened a page, it felt as though his willpower was being drained away. "I don't remember any of this. I've tried, but nothing sticks," he whispered to himself, voice hoarse with exhaustion. The curfew bell echoed through the dorm. His roommates were already asleep, but Arjun lay wide awake. He stepped out into the corridor, his footsteps steady but his heart in turmoil. His mother's face came to mind, her hair already silvering from years of worry since his first year at university, and her words haunted him. "You're the hope of the family, son." The thought tightened around his chest like a rope. The next morning, his class had a group discussion. The professor would call on students one by one, and every question could either earn respect or humiliation. Arjun forced a smile, but his voice caught in his throat. When asked a simple question about a theorem, he froze, his hand trembling as he raised it halfway, then lowered it again. A quiet sigh passed through the room. "Why didn't you answer?" someone whispered. The pressure pressed heavier upon his shoulders as he left the room, face burning with embarrassment. Day after day, the stress grew. Lunch became a rushed ritual, a quick bite, eyes still glued to past papers. While his friends discussed assignments over coffee, Arjun sat in silence, eyes fixed on his cup, thoughts racing. How can I remember everything? How can I not forget what matters? He asked himself again and again, without finding an answer. At night, strange dreams haunted him. He found himself standing in a vast lecture hall. Pages of books spun into the air like wings. Words floated just beyond reach. He stretched out his hands, but grasped only emptiness. He woke up drenched in sweat, heart pounding, feeling smaller than ever in the face of an endless ocean of knowledge. Then came the email from the scholarship office. Final results will determine. He felt his future collapse inward, dark and suffocating. He called his mother. Mom, I'll do my best. Her voice was warm through the phone. Just stay calm, eat well, and study steadily. I believe in you. But that faith, instead of soothing him, felt like a burden, something too precious to fail. After hanging up, he stared out the window. City lights flickered below. He wanted to scream, but the scream stayed locked inside. One night in the library, under the sterile white lights, Arjun noticed a classmate, Neeraj, studying calmly at a distant table. Head, and it collapses under pressure. Try stopping for a moment. Arjun let out a hollow laugh. Stop? How can I stop when exams are right ahead? Neeraj turned his screen toward him. A study. Plan. Break it down. Focus. Rest with intention. Today one topic, tomorrow another. Not everything at once. The idea landed softly in Arjun's mind, like a small pebble dropped into still water. Yet anxiety returned almost immediately. What if it's too late? What if I forget something important? The fear pushed him back into his old habits, late nights, endless coffee, trembling hands. Standing under a drizzle that blurred the world around him. Raindrops clung to the glass shelter like seconds slipping away. He realized he wasn't just battling knowledge, he was battling his own mind. Out of desperation, he visited the campus counseling center. Sitting awkwardly in the chair, he murmured, I feel pressure. I'm losing confidence. I'm afraid of disappointing everyone. What you know, it's how you know. That evening, he tried. He set a timer for 25 minutes, focused on one section of a chapter, then rested for 5 minutes, stretching, sipping water, playing soft music. For the first time in weeks, his head felt less foggy. He was still nervous, but something inside shifted, a small light flickering amid the chaos. One afternoon, walking home, the words pierced through Arjun's exhaustion. That night, sitting by the window, he watched a street lamp glow against the dark, a single flame in the night. And he thought, maybe I don't need to light 1,000 lamps. Maybe one clear light is enough to guide the way. The next morning, he listed priorities, key concepts, high-frequency topics, problem-solving techniques. He built a study schedule with breathing space. As he studied, he asked himself questions, summarized out loud, explained ideas as if teaching. Each time he understood something, he marked a small, tiny sparks of confidence forming a constellation. In another group discussion, a tough question arose. His mind hesitated, but this time he spoke. I'm not entirely sure, but I think it could be like this. His voice trembled slightly, yet he continued. The group listened. Another student added to his thought. When the session ended, Arjun felt a quiet satisfaction. Wisdom wasn't flawless knowledge, it was the courage to think, to ask, and to grow. Back in his room, he looked at his family photo on the shelf, his mother smiling gently, his father proud and stern. He whispered, Mom, I'll try a different way. I'll light one lamp, not burn myself trying to light them all. He lit a small candle on his desk, the flame reflecting softly in his eyes, a quiet promise to himself, not to give up, not to fear the mountain of books, but to climb with patience and clarity. Under that flickering light, Arjun opened his book again. This time, he began differently, one step at a time. Any storm. Chapter 2, The Lamp in the Darkness. That evening, after a long day buried in books and pressure, Arjun decided to take a walk outside the campus to breathe. The rain had just stopped. The ground was damp, and the sky was covered with a soft gray-blue hue. The breeze carried the scent of wet soil, mingled with a faint fragrance of jasmine from a small temple garden across the road. Arjun had seen that temple many times, but he had never stepped inside. Today, somehow, his feet felt guided by an unseen force. As he passed through the wooden gate, a bell chimed softly, its sound spreading through the air like ripples, gently calming his restless heart. In the courtyard, a few novice monks were sweeping leaves, laughing softly. On the stone steps sat an old monk. Approach. The monk opened his eyes, his gaze kind and knowing, as though he had sensed Arjun's presence long before. What do you seek at this hour, my child? His voice was low and calm, like a flowing stream. Arjun bowed his head and replied hesitantly, I'm not sure. Perhaps a bit of peace, master. The monk smiled and gestured toward the porch. Then come, have a cup of tea with me. They sat at an old wooden table, surrounded by the gentle aroma of tea. Silence settled between them. Only the sound of rain dripping from the eaves and birds calling in. Each word seemed to release a small piece of the weight he carried. The monk listened quietly, not interrupting. When Arjun finally stopped, the monk asked, Do you know what makes the water in? Everything settles, and the water becomes clear again. He paused for a moment, then said softly, Your mind is the same. When it is stirred by anxiety, fear, and comparison, you cannot see your. The monk chuckled gently. Effort is good, but you must know why you strive. Do you see the lamp in the Buddha hall? He pointed toward the shrine, where a small oil lamp glowed softly. If you keep adding oil without cleaning the wick, the flame weakens and smoke fills the room. But if you care for it mindfully, adding oil when needed and resting when needed, the lamp burns long and bright. He looked at Arjun with warmth. You keep adding oil, but you've forgotten to clean the wick of your own lamp. Learn to care for your mind before you force it to work harder. Gently, begin with your breath. When your mind is restless, stop and breathe deeply. Don't fight your thoughts. Just watch them as clouds passing through the sky. A wise mind isn't one without thoughts, but one not ruled by them. Arjun sat quietly for a long while. He listened to the wind brushing over the tiles, to the sound of leaves falling softly on wet ground. A sense of peace slowly filled him, like a knot inside had been untied. The monk continued. Long ago, the Buddha said, No light shines brighter than wisdom. Once, a man asked him, How can I find my way in the dark? The Buddha replied, Light the lamp of wisdom within your heart. The man said, But I don't know what wisdom is. The Buddha smiled. Wisdom is seeing things as they truly are, unclouded by greed, anger, or ignorance. The monk gazed toward the dimming sky. When your mind is clear, you'll know what to study and what to let go. When wisdom arises, fear and desire no longer drive you. He watched the oil lamp, listened to his breathing, and felt peace spreading through him. A small cat wandered by, curled up beside him, and slept. For the first time, Arjun felt true stillness, not the silence of loneliness, but the silence of being at ease. Before he left, the monk said, Remember, the lamp of wisdom is always within you. No matter how dark the night, as long as you remember. He walked slowly, lighter than ever before. When he reached his room, he tidied his desk, turned off his phone, and neatly arranged his books. Before studying, he closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and smiled. Inside him, a small lamp had been lit, the lamp of awareness, of wisdom, and of the quiet confidence that every challenge is simply a chance for the mind to shine brighter. Outside the window, the wind blew softly, and the glow of the streetlight met the flame of the small candle Arjun had lit on his desk. The two lights merged into a single warm glow, enough to illuminate his book as he began to read with a peaceful heart. In the stillness, he whispered to himself, Perhaps what I need isn't fewer lessons, but to learn how to see everything through the light of wisdom. And in that quiet night, the lamp burned on, casting its gentle light across the face of the young student, no longer anxious, but calm and resolute, like a flame that refuses to fade. Chapter 3. The Light That Guides the Way. Arjun woke up before dawn, a new habit formed since his days at the temple and the talk with the old monk. He no longer stayed up until exhaustion. Instead, his mornings began with a few minutes of breathing, a light breakfast, and a steady study plan. The small lamp on his desk reflected in his eyes like a reminder. Then avoidance. The following weeks settled into a calm rhythm. Arjun learned to break down tasks, but more importantly, He learned to pause and clarify the essence of each problem before solving it. When faced with a complex question, instead of diving in blindly, he asked, "What is the core of this? What do I need to understand first?" This perspective revealed hidden links between different topics, helping him solve problems with greater clarity. One afternoon before his toughest exam, panic returned. His heart raced, his hands were cold, and memories of past failures flooded in. Softly, "You have prepared with wisdom already. Let that wisdom carry you through the night. Breathe in, breathe out." Wisdom does not mean being fearless. It means using fear as a tool, not a master. Arjun sat and meditated for a few minutes. His breath slowed, and calmness returned. On the exam day, Arjun walked into the hall with a new sense of composure. The tension that once clouded him had dissolved into alert stillness. He scanned the entire paper first, marking the easy questions to start with. For the harder ones, instead of spiraling into anxiety, he marked them, completed what he knew, and circled back later with a clearer head. When he handed in his paper, there was no dread, just a gentle sense of peace. "I did my best," with understanding. When results were announced, Arjun opened the email with trembling hands. His eyes widened. His scores exceeded expectations, and his scholarship was safe. He laughed softly, lit a small candle on. Impulsive choices. Gradually, his relationships improved. Friends noticed his patience and openness. Teachers admired his balanced reasoning. Of course, life wasn't always smooth. Arjun still made a moment, but instead of shutting down, he asked calmly, "Can you show me where it didn't work? How can I improve it?" The team responded constructively, and their revised idea succeeded. Arjun realized wisdom was an ongoing process, questioning, observing, adjusting, and trying again. Wisdom also transformed how he spoke to his family. When his mother asked about the future, he no longer avoided the conversation. "I'll focus on developing my skills," he said gently. "If needed, I'll take a part-time job, but I'll keep balance so it won't affect my studies." His calm tone brought relief. His mother smiled. Not every question had an answer, but his presence brought peace to the family. One evening, Arjun met Neeraj again in the library. They studied together, and Neeraj said, "You've changed, calmer, clearer." Arjun smiled. "I've learned to ask myself before letting fear decide." As they solved problems together, Arjun found a new, more elegant solution. The joy wasn't in being right, it was in seeing clearly. Wisdom, he realized, was a lamp lighting his path. Over time, Arjun's life regained balance. He understood wisdom wasn't knowing everything, it was knowing what mattered, recognizing limits, and asking for help when needed. He joined a student club to share mindful study techniques, teaching others to plan calmly and focus on learning with purpose rather than fear. One student once came to him, on the verge of dropping out. "I can't handle the pressure," the boy said, eyes full of tears. Arjun listened quietly, then helped him build a simple plan: prioritize core subjects, find small scholarships, adjust work hours. Most importantly, he shared, "Don't let fear make your decisions." Softly, wisdom grows with humility and practice. At the end of the year, Arjun looked back at his journey. What he valued wasn't grades or recognition, but the way he walked, calmly, deliberately, guided by inner light. The fears still existed like distant stars, visible but powerless. He was grateful for his patience, his mentors, and every moment of quiet learning. One peaceful night, Arjun lit a candle and watched the flame dance. He thought of the nights of panic, the hours of study, the countless times he paused to breathe and ask, "Why am I learning?" Now, the answer was clear: to understand, to think wisely, to live freely. The flame on the desk was small but steady. Arjun smiled, eyes half closed. The light of wisdom was no longer distant. It had become his steady hum of the breathing machine, like the measured ticking of a distant world. The white walls seemed too clean, too empty. Outside the window, the city slept. She felt her body heavy and drained, as though something inside her had been quietly stolen away. Every breath carried the echo of exhaustion, every joint a reminder of pain. The flickering hallway lights above her cast trembling shadows on the ceiling, like needles stitching her heart with invisible thread. For weeks, Leela had been confined to that hospital bed. Her illness had arrived without warning. a long fever that drained her of all energy. And before she could recover, death had taken the person she loved most, leaving her with an unbearable silence. When she awoke after a long night of delirium, she looked around and saw the empty chair where he used to sit, unread messages on her phone, and frozen photographs that seemed to mock the warmth of happier days. "Are you feeling better?" the nurse asked softly. Leela tried to smile, but it trembled, thin as paper. "I'm okay, just tired," she whispered. The nurse placed a gentle hand on her forehead, adjusted the blanket, and Leela would call sometimes, listening to her mother's calm voice. "Don't worry, my dear. Just focus on healing." The sound of her mother's breath was steady, comforting, yet it also reminded her of how far she had drifted. When Leela was finally discharged, the world outside felt unfamiliar. She returned to her small apartment with 2 suitcases and a worn blanket. The laughter that used to fill the rooms had faded. Friends came to visit a few times, bringing fruit and awkward smiles, but then their visits stopped. Work piled up in her absence. Unfinished projects gathered dust. She had lost her health, her love, and now her sense of direction. Days passed in a haze. She avoided calls, left messages unread. Sometimes she tried reading a book her late partner had loved, but the words swam on the page. She would stare at the wall, whispering to no one, "Why did this happen to me?" The question echoed in her chest, unanswered, becoming heavier each time. Where fallen petals floated like tiny boats. She cried, quietly at first, then uncontrollably. People walked by, glancing at her briefly, then turned away. To them, she was just another shadow among thousands. That night, back home, she couldn't sleep. The walls seemed to close in. She thought of her lover, the sound of his laughter, the way he used to hum when he cooked. Memories came like waves, cruel in their tenderness. "If only you were still here," she murmured into the dark. The sentence hung in the air, incomplete, dissolving into silence. Friends urged her to see a therapist. She tried once, sitting across from a stranger asking her to talk about her pain. But every question felt like a scalpel. She left the session early, trembling. "Why am I so weak?" she scolded herself. But deep down she knew it wasn't weakness. It was grief refusing to be named. At work, things were worse. Her supervisor called her in. "Leela, are you all right? You've been missing." "Deadlines." She nodded helplessly. "I'm trying." The supervisor looked at her, said nothing more, just gave a quiet nod, and that silence hurt more than any reprimand. One evening, Leela received a letter from her closest friend. It said only, "He wanted you to remember his smile. Don't forget that smile." She held the letter tightly, tears running down her cheeks. Later that night, she found an old video on her phone, his laughter, his eyes full of light. She pressed pause, but couldn't stop hearing his voice in her head. Weeks turned into months. She pretended to be asleep. When the door closed behind them, guilt crept in, but not enough to make her move. One day, while wandering aimlessly, Leela stepped into a small bookstore. Among dusty shelves, she found a weathered notebook. On impulse, she bought it. Sitting in a cafe nearby, she opened it and began reading. It was filled with reflections from a traveler about rain, silence, and the pain of loss. One passage caught her breath. "Sometimes we must sit with our sorrow, not run from it." The words pierced her, not like a wound, but like a window cracking open to a faint breeze. For the first time, she wondered, what if I stopped running? From that day, Leela began taking small steps. She opened her window each morning, brewed tea, walked short distances around the block, greeted the shopkeeper downstairs. Tiny, almost invisible changes, but they mattered. One morning, she looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were still red, but for the first time she whispered, "I'm still here." Another day, she met an old woman sitting on a park bench, hands trembling over a book. The woman smiled kindly. "Why the sad face, dear?" Leela shook her head. "It's nothing." The woman chuckled softly. "The past can be heavy, but sometimes, all it takes to lighten it is a smile." The words sank into Leela's heart like a stone dropping into still water. Quiet, but deep. That night, lying in bed, Leela thought of the woman's smile. She remembered her lost love, his voice, his eyes, his warmth. "I miss you," she whispered into the darkness. There was no answer, But the words themselves felt like a release, a seed planted in her heart, fragile but alive. Days passed, and something inside her shifted. The emptiness didn't vanish, but she began to sense something beneath it, a quiet space where she could breathe. Hope, faint and trembling, flickered like a candle in the distance. She started writing small notes in her notebook. Walked today. It rained. Saw a flower. Simple lines, but full of life. One morning, as sunlight filtered through her curtains, Leela opened her window wide. She inhaled deeply. Completely broken, there was still a light, however faint, waiting to be noticed. That afternoon, passing by a small shop, she saw a tiny lantern glowing in the window, warm, golden, steady. Eyes. Chapter 2. The Candle in the Night. Rain had been pouring for days, heavy and relentless, turning the street where Leela lived into a blur of gray and gloom. She sat silently by the window. Countless sleepless nights. Leela felt as if the world had receded far away, leaving her alone with the emptiness within. She no longer believed in comforting words, no longer believed in the future. Some mornings, she didn't even wish to wake. Each day passed like a faded copy of the one before. But that evening, driven by a sudden impulse, she put on her raincoat and stepped out, not knowing where she was heading. Her wandering led her to a small temple hidden among the old neighborhood streets. Its moss-covered roof dripped with rain, and a thin mist of incense smoke rose gently into the air. The temple gate was slightly ajar, revealing a quiet courtyard where a Bodhi tree stood, shedding its last few leaves. Leela stopped, unsure why she had come. Maybe she just needed shelter from the rain, or perhaps it was the sound of the temple bell, warm and deep, echoing softly through the cold night. She entered, shoes soaked, clothes clinging to her skin. Inside the hall, only a few candles flickered before the Buddha statue, their trembling light like stray stars in the darkness. A thin, elderly monk sat cross-legged near the altar, his voice gentle and warm. "Of course, my child. Everyone is welcome here." She sat down on the straw mat before him, gazing silently at the wavering candlelight. For a moment, she felt a strange stillness, as if the rain outside was washing away the dust that had long weighed on her heart. After a while, the monk asked, "Why have you come here tonight?" Leela was quiet for a long time, before whispering, "I don't know. Maybe. I just needed a place where I could breathe." The monk nodded with understanding. "We all come to that place at some point." He looked toward the candle and said softly, "Would you like to hear a story?" Leela nodded. The monk's gaze grew distant, as if reaching into an old memory. Long ago, there was a small village at the foot of a mountain. One year, a terrible drought struck. The crops failed, and despair hung over the people. Among them was a young woman who, every day, carried a jar of water up the mountain to pour on a patch of barren soil beside a large stone. The villagers mocked her, saying, "Nothing will ever grow there. You're wasting your time." But she continued, day after day. Then one morning, after the first rain, in months, a single flower bloomed from that dry earth. The villagers saw it and suddenly believed the rains would return. And soon after, the sky opened, and rain fell freely once more. Leela listened silently, her eyes fixed on the dancing flame. The monk continued. When everyone else had given up, she kept watering the ground because she believed that beneath the dry soil, a seed was still waiting. In the same way, within us all lies a seed of light and hope, no matter how much darkness surrounds us. We only need patience and faith for it to grow. Leela looked up and whispered, "But what if there's nothing left to believe in? When everything is lost, when your heart feels empty, where is hope then?" The monk met her gaze. Those words brushed gently against her heart, like wind stirring dormant leaves. For the first time in many months, Leela felt something faint yet real awaken within her chest. The monk stood up, took a small candle, lit it from the flame before the Buddha, and handed it to her. "See, this flame was shared, yet nothing was lost. Light multiplies by giving, not to chase away the darkness outside, but to remind us that a candle also burns within." Leela took the candle. Its warmth spread across her palms, then into her heart. A tear rolled down her cheek. "Not from sorrow. Anyone, my child. We only close our eyes." She froze at his words. Looking down at the candle in her hand, she saw its small, steady flame, fragile yet strong. At that moment, she understood that. Perhaps the light she sought was not something to find, but something to remember, to open herself to again, even in a single breath, a drop of rain, a flicker in the night. Outside, candle with her hand. The faint flame quivered in the wind, sometimes faltering, sometimes steady, just like the rhythm of her heart. At the gate, she turned back once more and whispered, "I'll keep this candle, even if only a spark remains." As she walked down the street, the cold wind brushed through her damp hair, but warmth filled her chest. Around her, the city lights shimmered. Against the rain-soaked pavement, she walked among them, carrying her small candle. People stared, puzzled, but she only smiled, her first true smile in months. A gust of wind blew, and the flame went out. Leela stood still, staring at the extinguished candle. Yet instead of sadness, she smiled, realizing that the light hadn't vanished at all. It had moved inside her. Morning light. The first morning after a long, sleepless night of rain, Leela awoke to a faint glow seeping through her window. The chirping of birds outside sounded like a song calling the weary back to life. She sat up, feeling the warmth spread across the wooden floor beneath her feet, then took a slow, deep breath. For the first time in months, she felt alive, not just existing. The candle she had brought home from the temple sat quietly on the table. Though its flame was gone, the faint scent of incense still lingered in the air. Leela touched the wax with her fingertips. She wrapped herself in an old shawl, tied her hair neatly, and walked toward the riverbank. It was the same place she used to sit with her mother to watch the sunset. After her mother's passing, like fallen stars, an old man sat by the water's edge, fishing with a weathered rod. Leela stopped and greeted him softly. The old man looked up, his wrinkled face breaking into a gentle smile. "Beautiful day, isn't it, after all that rain?" Leela nodded. "Yes, it feels like a completely different day somehow." The old man chuckled, his voice rough but kind. Everyone carries had once sold goods before illness and loss had driven her into despair. At first, people were surprised to see her again. Some avoided her gaze, unsure of what to say to a woman who had suffered so much. But Leela simply smiled and greeted them kindly, day after day. One morning, a small girl ran into her stall, clutching a bunch of wildflowers. The child hesitated, then said shyly, "These are for you, miss. My mom says they're sunshine flowers. They make people smile. You helped me find my cat the other day." Leela knelt down and took the flowers gently. Monk's words, "The light never disappears. You only need to open your eyes to see it." One evening, Leela returned to the old temple. The monk was sitting by the veranda, his prayer beads moving slowly between his fingers, his face serene. When he saw her, he only nodded, saying nothing, as if he already knew. Leela placed her hands together and bowed deeply. "Master, I found my light." Again, the monk smiled softly. "That light was always within you. You've simply learned how to keep it burning." They sat quietly for a while, listening to the temple bell echo through the wind. After a long silence, Leela spoke again. "I've realized that hope isn't about waiting for good things to happen. It's believing I can keep walking, even when all I see is darkness." The monk nodded, his eyes shining with approval. "That is wisdom and faith. When you believe, you don't just seek the light, you become the light." That night, on her way home, Leela stopped at a small bridge crossing the river. Beneath her, the water reflected the full moon like a ribbon of silver silk. A gentle breeze carried the scent of lotus flowers from the far shore. She stood there for a long time, letting the quietness wash over her. From her pocket, she pulled out the same little candle from that stormy night. She lit it. The flame flickered wildly in the wind, sometimes dimming, sometimes glowing bright. Leela cupped her hands around it and whispered, "The wind may blow it out, but I'll light it again, as many times as it takes." The candle burned brighter, and in its reflection, her eyes gleamed with steady faith. Though life would still bring its share of trials, Leela knew she was no longer afraid. For within her heart, she carried the flame of hope, a light that required no source but her own courage and belief. In the days that followed, Leela began to help others. She taught neighborhood children how to read, cared for the elderly who lived alone, and with a few friends, organized small meals for the homeless. At first, only a few joined her, but soon the entire community began to follow. The once quiet streets filled with laughter again. One afternoon, a young woman came to her, tears streaming down her face. "I've lost everything. I don't know how to go on." Leela took her hand and said softly, "I once stood where you are. When you can't see the light, remember, even a small candle can chase away the darkness. And if there is no candle, then you are the light." The young woman broke down, sobbing, and Leela embraced her. The golden sunset bathed them both in a warm glow, like sunlight breaking through after a long storm. That night, Leela placed the next morning, she stepped out into the sunlit street. Every breath, every step was filled with new energy. Life no longer felt heavy, because she knew, deep within, that her candle of hope was still burning. As she walked down the street, a breeze passed by, carrying the scent of incense from the distant temple. She closed her eyes and let it wrap around her. In that moment, Leela understood, hope wasn't something far away. It was right here, in every breath, in every step she took. She smiled and continued on her way, beneath the glowing morning sun, carrying in her heart the eternal flame of faith, shining gently on the road ahead. 5 Buddhist stories to overcome difficult times. There are moments in life when it feels as though every door has closed. Pressure, loss, loneliness, fear, and despair. They come like storms sweeping through the heart, leaving us shaken and weary. Yet through each story, we see that beneath the ashes of suffering, a merchant grieving his losses, a lonely young woman yearning for connection, a student suffocating under academic pressure, and a traveler wandering through the darkness of despair. But no matter their circumstances, they all discover that the way out of suffering is not to escape it. It is to face it, listen to it, and transform it. The Buddha once said, "There is no path to peace. Peace itself is the path." Each story is not merely a lesson. It is a mirror reflecting our own hearts. When Ananda learns patience amid the storm, we too learn to stand strong in hardship. When Ravi lets go of the broken vase, we see that only by accepting loss can we move forward freely. When Maya opens her heart with compassion, we realize that love not only heals others, but also heals ourselves. When Arjun rediscovers wisdom in his studies, we understand that true knowledge arises not from fear, but from inner clarity. And when Leela rekindles the light of hope, pause for a moment, take a deep breath, and listen to our hearts. And we'll see that all suffering eventually passes, while a clear mind and a kind heart endure forever. Perhaps today you still carry a wound that hasn't healed. Perhaps you are angry at someone or disappointed in yourself. But remember, forgiveness is not about whether others deserve it. It's about whether you deserve peace. Try forgiving once. Forgive those who have hurt you. Forgive yourself for past mistakes, and you'll see that the wounds inside begin to heal. Forgiveness doesn't erase the memory, but it takes away its power to cause pain. Remember, light never disappears. It only waits for you to open your heart and let it in. And as these 5 stories have shown, within every hardship lies a hidden chance, a chance to grow, to live more deeply, to become more compassionate and wise. If these stories have touched your heart, please share them. For somewhere out there, someone may need just a small ray of light to make it through their own dark night. Like this message to spread positive energy, and subscribe to the channel to hear more Buddhist stories, stories that may not change the world instantly, but can transform a soul, perhaps even yours. Thank you for staying until the end. May you be peaceful with every breath, steady through all storms, and may you always keep in your heart a bright lamp, the light of faith, wisdom, and compassion. In life, we cannot avoid sudden storms, moments when